You could go and talk to your parents,
Abby heard her friend say, then saw her stop for a moment, shake her head and correct herself.
No, scratch that. You have to go and talk to them. This isn't a simple joke anymore, Abby. This is so far out there. You need to go to them and come clean.
Abigail almost recoiled at the thought. She looked around her room. The posters on her wall, her little desk with an open book still on it. The aquarium her stepdad had helped her get, and the tiny fish in there. Her computer. It would all be taken away if she was honest with her parents.
They will fucking kill me, Sandra,
she replied with a hiss, and looked for her friend's eyes, but found them staring down at the blanket they were both sitting upon. This wasn't some laughing matter. Abby had wanted support, maybe a few ideas on how she could get around it all. But her friends seemed determined to watch her suffer for what had been just a joke.
If you want me to still be alive by next week, you better help me come up with something,
Abby hissed, and looked on as her friend simply shook her head.
Maybe this time you just have to be honest with your parents and yourself.
The words were hardly more than a whisper, but she felt this stinging pain in her chest as she heard her only true friend's betrayal. She couldn't honestly expect her to take the fall for it all, right? It had been just a prank, a joke, nothing more. And besides, she hadn't been the one to come up with it, or film the whole thing. That had been Hannah. She should bear the brunt of the punishment, not her.
Come on, Sandra, please,
she implored, and finally her friend lifted her head to look at her. There was concern in her eyes, but her answer stayed the same.
I don't know, Abby. This is too much. As soon as the video starts spreading, people are going to recognize you. I mean, you could try and deny it all, but they're going to know. You know?
Abigail now shook her head as well. Everyone would know, and at least one of them would get the police involved. She didn't want that. Her life was over.
Would you rather tell your parents yourself? Or do you think they'll be happy if some cop comes to the door and tells them?
Abigail froze. She hadn't thought about that until now. How long before the police would turn up here? How much time did she still have?
I don't know. How should I even start telling them? I can't simply sit them down and say...
Her voice trailed off. Tears were flooding in her eyes. What would her stepdad do? What if he left because of it? Mom would be devastated.
You could start with, Mom, Dad, I fucked up. And then tell them the whole truth.
Abigail wanted to scream. No, that was the worst idea. Her whole world would collapse if she did that. What she needed right now was to clear her head and come at the problem from a different angle.
Hannah hasn't posted it, right?
She watched her friend pull out her phone and open an app, then shake her head.
Not yet. No.
Good. Abby took a deep breath, and the tears stopped. As long as she didn't post it, no one would know. Right? At least until one of the other ones opened their mouth. It wasn't like she was the only one involved, after all. Would they all stay silent? She couldn't count on that. One of them would either brag or break down to save their own hide. She knew it.
So,
if I make sure Hannah doesn't post it anywhere, it might just blow over, she whispered, and immediately felt her friend's hand on her shoulder.
Abby, stop. This isn't just going to go away. She's in the hospital right now. The police are, in all likelihood, already involved. It's just a matter of time, and you need to get out in front of it.
Her friend was crying now as well. Shit. What if she was right? How long have we known each other, Sandra? 12 years? We first met when we were 5. Have you ever seen me do something bad on purpose? Abby could see her friend's eyes narrowing, and the fact that she didn't answer stung. Have you? She could feel herself getting angry and desperate.
Well, you do tend to take it too far from time to time, Abby. Sometimes I think you care too much about what other people think of you. And Hannah? She's been a bad influence on you for a year now.
She could see how much her friend was struggling, yet didn't feel the tiniest bit of empathy. Her own life was hanging in the balance, and Sandra wasn't helping right now. Not at all. So you know I never meant any harm, right? The silence following was the real answer. She could see it in her friend's demeanor, how she tried to find a way out of this conversation.
I'm sorry, Abby. I know you don't mean it, but sometimes you can be a bit too rough. Chloe is in the hospital right now, and I don't think the police are going to care too much if you meant for it to happen that way. My dad told me that there's something like a theory in law that you take your victims as you find them.
Abigail could hardly believe her ears or eyes. This was sounding less and less like support, and more like an accusation. Victim? She blurted out, now unable to hide her anger any longer. Did you just call me a criminal?
Come on, Abby,
her friend pleaded, but she hopped off the bed to stare down at the sitting form there, now unable to look her in the eyes again. I thought it was a joke, Sandra. Chloe always has so many problems. It was just a joke. What's so hard to understand about that? If only she was normal, then nothing would have happened. Abby watched her friend suddenly stop shaking before standing up. This time, their eyes met. But she had never seen the other girl looking so angry.
You know what, Abby? Maybe you do deserve whatever happens next. It's not a joke if someone is crying, and it's not funny when you and your friends bully those poor kids. How long before you come after me, huh? I know how Hannah has been looking at me all this time, just waiting for a chance. You've changed so much. I don't think I can stand the new you anymore. Better tell your parents today, because I can promise you they will find out one way or another.
Abby took a step back as she saw her friend coming toward her, her gaze now burning with anger. So, you're going to rat me out? Is that it? She felt Sandra's hand on her shoulder, squeezing it far harder than ever before, and her whole demeanor had changed.
If a cop comes to my door, I will tell them the truth. I'm not your doormat. And maybe finally facing some consequences will do you some good.
Sandra pushed her out of the way hard, and Abby stumbled backward, still completely in shock. She felt angry and betrayed. Oh, you want to talk about consequences?
How about I stop sticking up for you then?
Her friend didn't even stop or turn around at the threat, but kept walking toward the door. Abby could feel this burning anger. Why was she abandoning her now? Right when she was facing the biggest crisis of her whole life.
You call me a shit friend. What about you? Never around, never up for something. I just grew up while you stayed a child, Sandra. Go. Run away, you coward!
Her friend opened the door, but then stopped for another second as her hand rested on the frame.
You're childish. Whatever happens to you, just know that you did all of it to yourself. No one forced you to join in. No one made you do what you did. And now, you're going to face the consequences for it. So don't drag me into that mess. Maybe go cry to your cool new friends. Or go look for that dumb wishing tree again. I'm sure it will be of more help to you than Hannah and the rest.
Abby wanted to reply, but her voice got caught in her throat. Instead, she picked up the next best thing, a small picture frame with a photo of her and Sandra when they had been around 12, and threw it after her friend. The object hit the wall close to where her hand had been just moments before, and shattered. Then the door was slammed shut, and she heard footsteps leaving her behind.
Fucking traitor!
Abigail hissed as she sank down to her knees. Her only real friend was abandoning her, and there was nothing she could do. She could feel tears in her eyes as she heard the front door falling shut. Was no one on her side anymore? What about Hannah? She would know what to do, right? Parts of her bristled at the thought. No. Hannah would only look out for herself. If it let her walk away from all of this scot-free, she would throw her under the bus in a heartbeat. The air inside her room felt stuffy as she knelt there, now crying openly. Soon, the police would turn up at her door to ask some questions, and she couldn't hide that from her parents. She knew how much she had fucked up. Maybe if she went to the hospital... No. If Hannah realized that she did, she would make it her life's mission to destroy her. Then, should she talk to the police? Maybe her parents first? A cold chill gripped her at the thought. She could already imagine the disappointment in her stepdad's eyes. Would she go to jail in the end? Abigail felt sick at the thought. She was spiraling, she knew, and that was something she really didn't need right now. Making a mistake at this point could fuck up her entire future. What she needed to do was breathe and stay calm. Abigail got off her knees and walked toward the door. The broken picture was still lying by the wall, and if her parents saw it, they would know that something was up. She reached it, bent down, and felt a sudden pain as one of the shards cut into her finger. With a groan, she pulled back and watched as blood started trickling out of the cut in her skin. The pain was awful, but it also seemed to stop her thoughts from spiraling any further. She couldn't stay cooped up in here, Abigail told herself. Sitting around in her room all day might make her do something really dumb. Right now, she needed fresh air and time to think. Ignoring the shards of glass and broken picture on her floor, she opened the door to her room and stepped out. leaving behind everything, including her phone, and made her way down the stairs and toward the front door.
I'm just gonna take a walk,
she announced, even though she wasn't sure if anyone else was inside the house at the moment. It didn't matter, she told herself. She needed to concentrate on herself anyway, on what she could do. Abigail walked out of the house and down the road. She didn't want to drive right now, for fear of being stopped by a cop. Instead, she let her feet choose where she would go, while she tried to calm down her own mind. Her thoughts were still in turmoil, and now she got distracted by all the things she had wanted to say to Sandra. Like how she was an ungrateful brat. How it had been her who had protected her from Hannah and the others. How she expected all the people around her to live their lives exactly the way she did hers. Abigail felt and heard a twig breaking beneath the sole of her shoe, and suddenly looked up. She had come farther than she had imagined, she thought. In front of her was the small park and forest where she had played with other children when she was 5 or 6 years old. This was the place where she had met Sandra, and also the one where they had started their expedition to the wishing tree. It was an old legend around these parts. A tree that could grant you a wish. What a dumb idea. But they had gone and looked for it nonetheless. Without success, of course. Such a thing couldn't be real. If it was, well, what would her wish be right now? That those past few days hadn't happened? That nothing bad would come of it? Chloe would leave the hospital? No harm, no foul? A sad chuckle escaped Abigail's mouth, and she let herself walk on. It was pointless, she knew. But for once her thoughts seemed to stabilize as she concentrated on that superfluous daydream. She could wish for a new life as well. One far away from everything. No. Without her family, she would feel completely abandoned. Then, what about Hannah, Chloe, and Sandra disappearing? The rest of Hannah's clique as well. It would give her a fresh start, and she wouldn't even have to change schools. That would be best, she thought, then heard another twig breaking beneath her feet, and looked up. She had left the park behind, and was somewhere in the forest. A part she had never seen before. It was dark here, far darker than she had expected, and the breeze now softly blowing into her face felt cold. Abigail looked down at her feet and noticed something about the twig she had stepped on. It was off. Pale, white, and dirty. A shiver ran through her as she looked around. The trees here seemed old. No, the whole area felt ancient. She could even smell it, this odor of must and rot. Abigail took a step and then felt a sharp, stinging pain in her hand. Looking down, she could see the cut on her finger reopening and blood slowly trickling out. It was running down her skin and dropping onto some rotten leaves covering the dirty ground. Something was moving there. Abigail felt another chill in her bones as she stood there, frozen and transfixed by what was happening beneath the leaves. The red drops were running down the brown foliage, drawing patterns into the dust before disappearing. Beneath her, The ground seemed to be trembling and shifting. She caught a glimpse of something thin and long between the leaves. It was moving like a snake, slowly dragging itself forward until it touched her shoe. Abigail almost screamed as she jumped back, then froze again when she felt something on her shoulder. A hand was touching her. A human one. She turned her head and looked at Sandra's face, who was now staring back at her with a soft smile.
Sandra?
She asked, but the figure simply shook her head and let her hand wander down her arm until it touched her wrist. The hand felt wrong, somehow cold and clammy, but the strength with which she held her made Abigail shut her mouth completely. The figure stepped past her and softly dragged her along. Abigail felt confused. What was happening to her? How was Sandra here? Had she followed her? Did she want to take revenge?
Sandra, listen.
She tried to say, but the figure lifted one finger and quickly shushed her. Abigail felt herself getting pulled along again, into a clearing between the trees where the shadows seemed even darker than before. If she didn't know better, she would have thought night had fallen over the forest. The figure still holding onto her wrist didn't look back again, only led her deeper and deeper into the shadows, while she found it hard to keep up. Abigail stumbled and got pulled along. This person, this thing, it was dragging her somewhere, but she couldn't even find it in herself to speak up. The hand holding onto her wrist was definitely not human. That much was clear to her. Then, what was its plan? Where to would it bring her? She didn't have long to think about it before the thing stopped abruptly and gave her a soft shove. Abigail couldn't react in time, lost her footing, and fell to the dusty, leaf-covered ground. The area around her was completely silent. There was no buzzing of insects or chirping of birds. This place was dead, her instincts told her, and Abigail felt a shiver running through her body. She didn't want to move. Something inside her told her to just stay still. Now that she listened closely, she found that the figure that had dragged her here wasn't making any noise either. Was it waiting just behind her? For what? Abby cursed herself for leaving her phone in her room and not screaming for help the moment this thing had grabbed her. But right now, she couldn't do anything about that. Slowly, her eyes were growing accustomed to the lack of light, and as she carefully looked around, she could see a row of trees standing in a circle, with one right in front of her, giving off this soft glow. It didn't look inviting. To the contrary, this thing seemed dangerous. Abigail tried to scoot back, but a hand grabbed her by the neck and made her look at the tree. It was pulsing, she realized. That soft red light was moving behind the dark and cracked bark of this monstrosity. She needed to get out of there. Something touched her finger and squeezed out another drop of blood, but as she lowered her gaze, Abigail could only see the outline of a small, dark root sticking up from the ground.
You have been searching for us,
The thing that looked like Sandra said, still standing behind her back. Another chill gripped her as she heard the voice that sounded just like her friend, yet still different. There was no warmth in there, no empathy. The hand on her neck didn't let up either, and she could see the glowing of the tree getting stronger, then weaker. It looked impatient, eager. Abigail tried to steal a glance at her back, but the hand kept her head facing forward.
Tell us your wish, child.
The voice piped up again.
Wish?
She thought, and felt this strange atmosphere pressing down on her. It was real. The tree shone in an even darker red. She could feel her heart racing in her chest. If this was real...
I'm in a bit of trouble,
Abigail began, but stopped herself immediately. She hadn't thought it through before. What kind of things could she wish for? The hand squeezed her neck softly, not painfully.
Wish for whatever you desire, child. But be aware, everything has a price.
It was Sandra's voice again, talking from behind her. If it was real, she needed to take the chance. Abigail took a deep breath and faced the tree this time, not with fear, but with determination.
I'm in trouble after a small prank,
she said, and heard what sounded like a chuckle coming from behind her.
You almost killed a classmate, you mean?
The Sandra look-alike in her back sounded amused when she cut her off. Even though part of her wanted to correct her, she could feel it in herself. This thought had plagued her the whole day, that she actually had almost killed Chloe. Now, with her being in the hospital, it might still happen. Could the tree turn back time? The pressure on her neck got worse as the hand squeezed her tightly again.
We cannot change the past, girl. What is done is done.
The voice came forth, cutting off her thoughts. This thing. It was reading her mind.
Then can you make this whole thing go away? Or at least protect me so I don't get blamed?
Silence fell over the area again. The tree in front of her was glowing in this dark red light. Slowly, it started pulsating once more, giving off the impression that it was moving.
Very well,
the voice behind her whispered, and Abigail felt the pressure in her neck lessening.
The price is one life. Bring us one of your friends. You have until midnight.
Abby froze completely as the hand disappeared, and she heard a sudden noise in her back as the figure fell over. It didn't sound like a human, but bits and pieces of something hard that had fallen to the ground. The glowing of the tree got weaker, until it was almost unnoticeable, and as she finally got up and turned around, Abby could see a pile of leaves and torn off roots behind where she had knelt. She could feel it now. This presence. It was all around her. This wasn't a joke, nor was it a game, she told herself. Whatever this thing was, she had just made a deal with it. A cold chill ran through her bones. Until midnight, it had said. She didn't even want to think about what would happen if she missed that deadline. Abigail turned and started jogging back the way she had been dragged along. There were so many things she couldn't fully wrap her head around. Like, what was this thing doing here? Why had it led her to it? What did it want to do with her friend? Well, She did have answers to those questions, but she didn't want to say them out loud anyway. Abigail stepped out from between two trees and suddenly found herself back in the lighter part of the forest where she had first seen that Sandra look-alike. Whatever power this tree had, it didn't want to keep her in here. Abby continued running. She should come up with a plan. First, she needed her phone. Then, she could get Hannah to meet her here. Everything would be fine, Abby told herself, even though part of her already felt like she had made a big mistake coming here. The sun had set already, yet here she was, sitting on the grass of the park, staring at her phone and the messages she had sent Hannah. "Meet me in the park. It's urgent. Come quickly. I think I found a way to help. Where are you? Hannah?" She had answered until half an hour ago and promised to meet her here. But as of yet, there was no sign of her. Abigail growled and closed her eyes for a moment. She thought she could feel the pull of the tree already. It seemed to grow stronger with every passing second.
"Where are you?"
She growled, then looked at the other messages she had sent. One to her mom, a few more to Sandy. Abby had apologized for being a shit friend. She had admitted that she had been insecure, even jealous of how little Sandra seemed to care about other people's opinions of her. The last thing she had written to her was another apology, and how much her friendship had meant to her. But her friend had left her on red.
"What a shit day,"
she told herself, then added,
"and it might be my last."
Where the fuck was Hannah at? She should have arrived here 20 minutes ago. Abby opened the messages to her again. No activity. She hadn't even read them yet. Her hand hit the grass, and she could feel a tremor running through the ground. Just like back in there, she thought and shivered. What would this thing do if she didn't bring someone? Abby had a feeling she already knew the answer to that question. It wouldn't turn out well. Then where the fuck was Hannah? It would be hard enough to get her into the forest, but everything she had planned would be completely useless if her friend didn't even turn up. Had there been an accident? Or had the police gotten to her already? Abby felt her phone vibrating and almost screamed from the shock. But instead of the name Hannah on the screen, she read Mom. Why was her mother calling her? She had a bad feeling about it. No, talking to her now wouldn't help her. What is done, the strange tree had told her. She needed to hurry up. Abby swiped the call away and immediately sent Hannah another message. Come quickly. I can help you. Footsteps rang out, quick ones, and Abigail raised her head to look in the direction. But coming toward her wasn't Hannah, but Sandra. She could feel a chill in the air as she saw her, her mind reminding her how similar she looked to the thing she had seen in the forest.
"Sandra?"
Abby asked, and could see the fear in her friend's eyes.
What are you doing out here? Why didn't you talk to your parents? They're looking for you everywhere. Your mom came by my house.
Abby stood up and wiped a few blades of grass from her pants. So it had already happened, huh? The police were involved. Hannah wouldn't come now. She could feel her heart hammering in her chest. There was no running away from it now. Some part of her told her.
Do they know?
Abby could see it in her friend's face. The sadness, and even a bit of fear. Her silence was the only answer Abby needed. She swallowed hard.
Can you do me one last favor?
Her voice almost broke, but Sandra nodded immediately.
Just for old time's sake. I came here before, and I think I found the tree.
Abby watched her friend's expression change from anxious to confused.
Please, just 5 minutes. Afterward, I'm gonna call Mom and then go face the music. Okay?
Her friend still stared at her with this strange look on her face, but nodded in the end.
Thank you. Really?
Abby said, then grabbed hold of Sandra's wrist, turned and walked toward the dark forest. Her friend was keeping up with her, but staying silent, which suited her just fine. What would she have to do? Probably bring her to the tree. Then what? She didn't even want to think about it if she was honest. Abby turned on the flashlight on her phone as they entered the forest to light them the way. How would the tree help her? Could it make the police ignore her? She didn't know, but from what she had seen before, it seemed like this thing should be able to help her in some way. Well, she would find out soon, Abby promised herself. Her palms were sweaty, but she marched on, holding her friend's wrist in her grasp, almost like the thing had done to her.
How far is it?
She heard Sandra ask, but only shrugged her shoulders. It wouldn't be long. She didn't need to tell her that. There was no point in scaring her. They passed through the woods, then arrived at the place where Abigail had seen the Sandra-looking thing for the first time. The air around them was cold, but she could definitely feel tremors running through the ground. Abby looked at her friend and could see the confusion had made way for outright fear.
What are we doing here, Abby?
She asked. She couldn't answer. This was her way out. Sandra would help her, whether she wanted to or not. So, she shook her head and then pointed the flashlight at the spot between the trees, where the darkness seemed so much deeper than anywhere else. This was the way.
What the fuck, Abby?
She looked up, and for the first time since they had started walking, she realized what she was doing here. There, in the darkness, hardly touched by light, was a hand. A human-looking one, even though she knew it was only pretending. Sandra tried pulling away, but Abby held her back by her wrist.
I brought it,
she growled, while staring at the figure still hidden by the darkest shadows.
The price I need to pay.
The thing in the darkness moved, and Abby saw the light of her phone flickering. Her friend struggled against her grasp and pulled at her hand, but she didn't let go. She couldn't. This was her only way out of this whole mess. If she didn't give up Sandra, her own life would be in danger.
Come and get her,
Abby hissed at the thing in the shadows that stepped out. It looked different from before. Not fully formed, but it was quick. Abby felt a gust of wind as the thing rushed past her and grabbed her friend's other arm. Sandra was now screaming for her life.
Come on now.
She could see the thing pulling Sandra back and felt a twig breaking beneath her shoes. Abby finally let go of the hand and heard her friend cry out once more. She had done what she was supposed to do. Her part in all of this was over. In the flickering of her light, she could see Sandra fighting against the thing, hitting it with her free hand, kicking at it as she was dragged toward the darkness. At each and every hit, the thing gave off hollow, wooden sounds.
Abby, please!
Her friend's voice echoed in her head.
Help me!
She stood there and watched as the thing reached the darker shadows again, and Sandra stopped hitting it. Her hand was grabbing hold of one of the trees. She was trying to stay out of the darkness. Abby looked at her face. It was a mask of terror, while the thing still pulled at her free hand.
Please, Abby, do something!
She could feel it. The vibrations in the ground were getting stronger. This was the last time she would see her friend. Part of her piped up. The thought felt like a hot needle shooting right through her heart. What was she doing here? Standing by, watching her friend get dragged into the darkness?
Abby, help me!
She could see Sandra's fingernails breaking on the bark as the thing kept pulling her into the shadows. Abigail felt this stinging pain in her chest. Was this really what she wanted? Parts of her were waking up to the fact that she was just now killing her friend. This thing would murder her, eat her. And she was standing there, just letting it happen. Sandra howled in pain and fright as a piece of bark broke, and she fell to the ground with a scream. The thing was dragging her along as her fingers dug deep grooves into the dirt.
Help me!
Abby could see the tears in her friend's eyes as the shout echoed back from the trees. It was killing her. She couldn't. This wasn't. Sandra screamed again as her lower body disappeared in the darkness. And with a howl, Abby jumped in after her. Rhonda couldn't believe her eyes. After the call from Sarah, where the girl was almost in hysterics, she hadn't thought her daughter would dare to keep that dumb joke going. Now, her phone was ringing again, and she could see Abigail's photo and name on the screen. Rhonda shot the officer sitting at her table a glance, turned away, and took the call. She wanted to say something, but the tone in her daughter's voice made her stop.
Hi, Mom. Sorry about everything. I know you know, but I'm in some deep shit right now.
There was a strange noise on the line. It sounded like bark scratching over bark.
I just called you because, I'm afraid I won't be coming home again. I'm so sorry.
Rhonda tried to say something, but a loud scream pierced her ear as her daughter's voice vanished and the sound of wood breaking ended the call.